back to the channel. If you do enjoy NFL draft content, this is the place to subscribe. In today's video, we are doing a Chicago Bears 7-round mock draft. I'm excited for this one. There's a lot that needs to happen for the Bears in this draft. Obviously, this is a pivotal point in the franchise. Matt Nagy will likely be gone. So let's jump right into the draft because first and foremost, they don't have their first round pick. That belongs to the New York Giants. Really unfortunate, but that was the trade that they had to make in order to get Justin Fields. So you cannot blame them for that. So, really the draft is a big thing for the Bears. However, they're going to have to start with pick 38. That's where it begins for them. Maybe they move up into the first round with some of their other draft choices, but I don't know if that's super wise of them to do that. Now, looking at what we do have on the board, offensive tackle for me, huge priority for this team. Now, considering what is still on the board, we have to look at it. Daniel Faalele is the top prospect. Reason being, he's 6'9", 400 pounds, an absolute mauler, a guy that has tremendous upside. Now, if you are the Chicago Bears, do you want to take a little bit of a flyer on a guy like that? Do you trust his development process? There's other proven players as well that are huge impact guys that might not be as much of a need right now. Nakobe Dean is an outstanding player. The fact that he is still here at pick 38 is incredibly shocking to me. But for me, you have to look at this Bears team and say, hey, this offensive tackle position, it's been put off too long. It's got to be Daniel Faalele. Now, I know a lot of people are going to look at the ranking and say, hey, he's ranked a little lower, but we have to consider what type of prospect he is. He is a high upside guy, tremendous ceiling for this player. He's been fantastic at the University of Minnesota. So hopefully, he continues to transition and grow as a player. Now we are sitting at pick 69 with your Chicago Bears selection. I think wide receivers a need. I definitely do, considering Allen Robinson's in the final year of his deal. You have to be thinking towards the future in that regard. With what I'm seeing on the board, I don't absolutely love it. We should definitely look at other positions. For me in particular, the interior offensive line, Thayer Munford is still there at this spot, and Alec Lindstrom's another guy I'm considering here at Ingram. However, Munford is a guy that I really think that they should key in and focus on. I think he is a third-round level player for sure. I like him. He has a little bit of versatility as well. When needed, Ohio State has asked him to kick out to tackle, and he's been able to do that. So Thayer Munford is going to be my pick. And if you are the Chicago Bears, all of a sudden this offensive line is looking so much better than it did before the start of the draft. Yes, they don't have their first-round pick. That makes a big, big difference. But with what they have in the draft in terms of capital, they've done a nice job with this mock here addressing the key needs. You have to protect Justin Fields up front. That's what we've been able to do with that selection. I think it's very, very key for them to focus in on that and make those decisions. Whether or not that they want to completely address the offensive line right away in this draft, obviously it's totally up to them. But for me, I think it's a huge priority that you must protect Justin Fields. You must make sure that, you're able to run the ball consistently. And those last two selections are going to help them in a huge, huge way. So now looking overall, what are we seeing from a collective standpoint on who's still on the board? A couple of positions that I think you can identify once again is that wide receiver spot. We have to consider linebacker as well. I know the contract situation with this team, you definitely have to think that way. There's a couple of guys on expiring deals, Christian Jones being one of them. Definitely could be a thought process and what you might want to do. Edge spot as well, there's a ton of guys. Just to name a few, you have Irving and Marsh and Nichols, that are on their contract years. So whether or not they bring them back, that's going to depend on how this selection goes. So once again, looking at the overarching best players available, Channing Tindall is a guy value-wise that I would have a hard time passing up on if they are the Chicago Bears here. Corner's another spot you definitely have to consider Josh Jobe from Alabama. He's actually going to be my pick. Great value at this spot. Hopefully Tindall lasts to us and he ends up doing that. So once again, you add two huge impact players in this draft right here. You're getting one here at pick 146, a guy that is definitely worth a higher selection, kind of gets overshadowed by that entire Georgia defense. really, really good instinctual player, guy that has a nose for the football. Channing Tindall is going to be my pick. And so once again, you address the offensive line, huge. You address two different levels of your defense as well. So what the Chicago Bears are doing right now, taking advantage of value and also filling the key needs for this team. I think everybody fit wise makes a lot of sense for this team moving forward. And if you're the Chicago Bears, considering you don't have that first round pick, you have to feel pretty good what you can do with this draft. I think they're going to get a little creative in terms of possibly acquiring a couple of mid-round picks. I'm curious to see what their course of action is going to be with that. But if I know this Bears team, I think they're going to be super aggressive. I think they might trade down to acquire some more picks as well. It really depends on how the board is falling to them, as every other team does. They always evaluate what's there currently. And I think at the wide receiver position, it's fair to kind of look at what we have here. Jalen Nailor is a guy that is still here. I'm very shocked that he's still available at this spot. I get his rankings 233, but he's a name that you have to consider. I think he's being severely undervalued in these big boards. Jalen Nailor could step in and be a huge impact player right away, and you're drafting him in the 6th round. Once again, great value and a guy that is going to be a team fit for Justin Fields. You have him and Darnell Mooney. That's going to be a nice combination. So Jalen Nailor is going to be my pick for this team. A couple of other guys on the board that I saw that I'd like, but I didn't want to miss out on Nailor in case he were to go soon. So looking at it as a whole, we've addressed both offensive line spots, 2 defensive players we've selected on 2 different levels of the defense. Overall, I like what we have so far. I think this Bears team, they're in that big transitional phase. They're going to be getting a new coach. It's going to be a new culture. It's going to be a lot of different things are going to change for this Bears roster. However, that's not to say that the future is super bright for this team, especially when you're looking at Justin Fields being your franchise cornerstone. I know a lot of people were having doubts about Justin Fields as a player, but he has tremendous upside. This is a guy that we have to consider. Very well could have been the 2nd pick and in last year's class just because of his physical traits, his arm. There's so much to love about him as the actual prospect. So overall, I think we did a really, really good job addressing those key areas of need, especially helping develop Justin Fields in that way. Something I would have liked to have done in this draft, which it was really tough with what we've had, is can we get a true wide receiver, a really, really talented one? Nailor fits in nicely, but I don't see him being that one. I think Darnell Mooney is going to have to be the one moving forward, just considering with what we had to do in this draft. We had to get creative with that offensive line. I find that to be a humongous need, and we were able to address that, with Mumford and Faalele. So overall, we're going to take a look at what we were able to do. Pick 38, Faalele, huge selection here. We've even had him going in the 1st round. I think people are going to fall in love with his physical traits. Thayer Munford is going to be another player that I love for this team. Versatility, having him on that interior of that offensive line, particularly the guard spot, is going to be huge. Josh Jobe in that secondary. Once again, we were picking based off value there. I felt he shouldn't have slipped that far. Channing Tindall, guy overshadowed at Georgia. And then you get a guy like Jalen Nailor there, I think could be an impact player despite him being later in that draft. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button if you are new. Also, please leave a like if you did enjoy today's video. We're going to come out with more and more NFL team mocks, so be tuned for that. Leave a comment below on what team you'd like us to do next, and we will catch you guys in our next video.